Okay, got an update on some of the cars. So, Cresta, what have we done? So recently there was some clunking going on with the suspension that I've been chasing for a very long time. And actually, the other day I was driving, the coolant temp got up to 110 degrees C. It's not meant to get that high. It's probably meant to go maybe, I don't know, 95 on a hot day. That's just a guess. Usually indicates something's wrong. But in my case, quite often get a leak. There'll be a leak somewhere. So the system will get up to pressure, but it eventually gets air in the system, and yeah, that's what causes the overheating. So I've shown before, I've got just a cheap pressure tester where I pressurize the radiator, the system, but you pressurize it via the radiator. And then I put a piece of cardboard underneath, and you sort of check for drips. And you can actually, it was the lower radiator hose. The clamp just needed tightening because I just recently replaced it with a second-hand pipe. But yeah, it just, when I replaced the pipe initially, I pressure tested it and it didn't leak. But either I didn't have it up high enough pressure, or over time it's developed that leak. So I sealed that up. Before that, I actually had one at the oil cooler, but fixed that up. So that's all sorted now. And while I had the car up in the air, I thought, you know what, I'll just check. So recently I've just put in new caster arms. I don't know whether we can see. Yeah, see the gold ones back there? They're, oh, what are they? Skid Racing. So those gold arms up there, the caster arms, I just put those in and torqued everything up when I fitted them, obviously. Had a wheel alignment, been driving on them for 2 months maybe. And sure enough, the anchor bolts where it anchors to the chassis at the back and on this side over here were actually loose, like loose. So I reckon that was the source of a couple of my clunks in the front. What else did I find? Oh, my engine mounts. So you can see up here, I'd never checked those. They're quite difficult to get to. And I always had in my mind, hey, I need to check those. And sure enough, the bolt at the bottom, or the nut at the bottom, and the nut at the top needed tightening as well. So I sorted those out. But fairly recently, I've done a lot of work to the suspension of this car. I probably should have recorded it with the car up in the air, but I'll give you a bit of a run through of what we got. So DG5 coilovers, they're excellent, aside from one thing, which I'll show you later on. I've got a KTS brace here at the front. It's probably a bit hard to see, but it does hang down a little bit low. So in comparison to, say, a Cusco one or a, what's the brand, Tom's, this KTS one, which is half the price of the others, it hangs a bit low. So that's sort of the caveat you have with that. We put in a Cusco front sway bar, the Skid Racing arms, and then I very recently put shortened knuckles, so drift knuckles, and it's like, the car's now amazing. I absolutely love it. The steering response is really good. It self-centers very easily, which is the most important thing. I mean, pre-existing, we've got shortened uprights and RCAs there. But that's it for the front suspension. Now, another thing that I had done, and we can't really see it, but I'll just explain it, is if you want to know about this, there's a couple of videos back from this that I just talked about it, but you can't see it, but this wire here goes to my pre-intercooler air temp sensor. The one the ECU runs off is this one here. It's a Link/Bosch sensor, and actually I'm hoping if that's sealing, I might have to check that. But anyway, I was interested to see, because this has a Greddy intercooler down here. They're good for about 400 horsepower, and then they start to lose efficiency. So the more you sort of give it boost, the difference, like the difference between the temperature going into the intercooler, so the difference between that temp sensor and this temp sensor becomes a lot greater when you've got a poorer intercooler. This car only makes 450 horsepower, and you know, it's a street car, so it's not exactly driving on the limit all the time. The next step up is to go with something like a Garrett core or a Plasma Man. They call it a street cooler, which is about a 600 horsepower cooler. You definitely don't need to go to a 1,000 horsepower cooler. That's just overkill, because they're a lot bigger volume, and you'll lose response because you know, on the street you want to keep things kind of as small as possible, so you've got that response. What are you doing, Dorothy? Stay there. So that's that. And in fact, so I've got a SYLTECH glass bead element sensor down here, and it's more accurate than this Bosch sensor here. So when looking at the graph of this sensor, it's actually like really, really smooth. And then if you look at it in comparison to this sensor, this one's actually jagged. It's fast, it's still a fast response, but yeah, the resolution on this SYLTECH sensor is amazing. I'm even thinking about drilling this out and tapping it for a 1/8 NPT thread, so I can run this the SYLTECH post intercooler sensor. So this one has a good temperature range for, say, 0 to 120 degrees C. This one has a good temperature range for, let's say, -20 to 100 degrees C. So the range at which they measure is suited for their application. That's why, like, you know, okay, so some people go on about your air filter here is sucking in hot air. Okay? Yes, very true. Okay? It is good to have maybe this shrouded off and a cool air supply. So you're starting with cool air, but it's got to go through this thing. And when air is compressed, it heats up. That's a compressor. So yes, by starting off with cooler air to start with, you will hopefully get a denser air to fuel charge. But once it comes out through here, so say ambient air temperature is 30 degrees, it might be 50 degrees here, but by the time it's gone through the intercooler, it's back to, say, 36 degrees here at this sensor. So that's how the pre-intercooler and post-intercooler
IAT and CAT, charge air temperature sensors, work. Okay, so that's that. Oh yeah, I've got this really cool Cusco carbon strut brace. Okay, initially when I built the car, I wanted to use this carbon intake pipe, you know, provided it sounded good. And yeah, when I found out they made these, I had to get one. So yeah, very, very cool. It'd be even cooler if it's, you know, some of this stuff was made of titanium, but this is not a GTR, unfortunately. This is just a humble Toyota. I turned my eBay radiator into a Greddy radiator with a nice little emblem, you know, just to match the Greddy clamps here and my Greddy sticker on my fake plastic cam gear doodad. In fact, these are proper Greddy cam gears. Greddy used to make one of these and it had a Greddy logo in it, but they discontinued it. And that's one thing I hate about, I mean, it's good and it's bad about sort of Japanese parts, is there'll be a part that, like this, that I'm sure that they'd still sell hundreds of, but I mean, who knows, maybe if I could get the genuine article, I wouldn't have bought a fake one. But yeah, you can't get the genuine Greddy one, so I have to buy a sort of an eBay style cooler. So that's that. Oh yeah, with the sensor, it was actually damaged when I got it. I think it might have been a manufacturing fault, but I just want to say, like, SYLTECH, I sent photos to the retailer and then I sent the sensor back to SYLTECH. The following week I had a new sensor. So I can't recommend those SYLTECH sensors enough. Okay, so that's all the engine stuff. Inside, please. What do we got happening in here? Yeah, so this is my cruise control. So I had to cut out this part of the console, and I do have a very brief video on how I mounted this. This is I think it's from a Yaris or an IS200, but essentially this is like a $12 eBay cruise control stalk, and I've set it up in the link, and essentially you just set it and then engage it, and with the drive-by-wire I've now got cruise control. And because the car is digital dash, so see, because the car is digital dash, if it's saying 63 k's an hour and I engage the cruise control, boom, it stays on 63 k's an hour, and that's when I know it's with it, you know, it's doing cruise control. I do have if anybody wants the pinout for this, I do have the pinout, and I've put it into a spreadsheet. But down here somewhere there is a cruise control light. There's a traction control light, etc. And what I'd really like to do is, when cruise control is engaged, the ECU sends a CAN message to a CAN receiver, and the CAN receiver then switches on the cruise control light on the dash. That's something I've been working on. Arduino shit. But yeah, that's that. once I have figured out the Arduino stuff a bit more, I will share what I've been doing with that. The bottom seat is out at the moment because I've been working on, I just replaced the rear seat belts, or one of the rear seat belts had actually broken up here. A pretty common thing with JZX90s. So replaced both the seat belts, and then I had to do something with that shock over there, which again I'll show you. I'll just go through what's going on at the back here, if we can see. So I like these strong flex bushings. Some people say they have issues with them breaking. I've never actually seen a picture of them breaking, and I'm sure that's a Dorothy inside please. I'm sure it's an install thing. Cusco sway bar on the rear, Serial 9 lower camber arm, IKEA formula front tension arm, and then I did have some Yannick toe arms, but now I've just got KTS ones, the blue toe arms at the front there. Basically because, you know, Serial 9 was on special at half price. IKEA formula was the same price as everything else, so why not get IKEA formula? And then, yeah, the KTS toe arms will be in there until they sort of flog out, and then I'll either get something I might try and afford the IKEA formula matching toe arms, but they are quite expensive. Up here, the upper camber arms have got Serial 9 OEM plus urethane bushings, and they were squeaking. So last week I pulled it all apart and pulled out the cylinder from within the bushing, and it turns out that whatever grease used to be in there was no longer in there, and the cylinder was actually starting to sort of fret on the inside of the urethane bushing. So there's some photos of that on my Instagram, fine_performance on IG, but I just sanded the cylinder down and then greased it up, put it back in, stopped all the squeaking, and same deal with the loose stuff that I found at the front. The tension arm, the front bolt needed tightening. The front bolt of the subframe had actually loosened off, so I got those tightened up. And then there was the work I had to do with the shock. And funnily enough, it's both on the left-hand side. So the front left, when I first got the shocks, I had issues with them. You know what? I think those parts are upstairs. Okay, so I'll just explain it. So both on the front and the rear shock, there's this spherical bearing that sits in here. And this one flogged out like, geez, within 6 months of having the coilovers, and then that rear left one had play in it as well. You can feel it by bouncing the car and sort of putting your fingers on that area of the coilover, like where that bushing is. But when you actually take the bearing out and try and move it, it's very hard to discern whether it's moving or not by feel. If it's really bad, then yes, sure, it's easy to feel it. But actually I saw somebody said, what you do is you put it in a vise, the edge of the bearing, and then you get a dial gauge and you measure the play using a dial gauge. So yeah, that's a thing. Now, the bearings that DG5 use, NMB is the brand. I can't give you the part number right now, but they're the same as Teen, same as Cusco. A whole bunch of manufacturers use those same bearings. Another company that uses not the same brand, but the same dimension is BC. So this is a top hat piece off a WRX, and this bearing in here is in fact the same dimensions as the one DG5 Teen and Cusco use. What you need to do is you need to drill out these bolts because they're impossible to get undone, and then gently extract the bearing from here. In fact, this front left one is one of the bearings from one of these. You might even find these BC parts a bit cheaper than buying the genuine NMB doohickeys. So that's that. See, that's the one I took it out of. Drilled off the heads of the bolts and pressed the bearing out of there. So that's the Cresta. Tomorrow, the blue car is finally getting finished on its tune. So if you've never seen this before, this is my third WRX. It's probably the best one I've ever had. Let me grab a key. Oh yeah, so with this, I fitted this Greddy warning meter. It has a little box, and the map sensor goes into the box, and then the gauge is electronic off the box. And I actually have two others of these that came without the wiring. I just got them cheap, and I'd always wanted, I could never get them to work, so I bought a working one. When it arrived, it turned out the light bulb didn't work, and this is actually one of the other gauges that I had that the bulb works in. So I adapted this Greddy, I think it's from an R33 GDR or something. But yeah, I've now got a boost gauge. I don't know, I haven't even driven the car yet because it, yeah, you've got memory and like recall and that kind of thing. I've not even tried any of that stuff. Another thing I did was I bought a 30mm steering wheel adapter. So because this Nardi wheel is very flat, it's a long reach from where I have my seat. So I could have run a deeper dish steering wheel, but because I've got this wheel, I just thought I'd space it out, and now it's perfect. So when I sit, you know, my arms have the correct sort of bend, and driving the car now, it's 100% better. So yeah, if you find your steering wheel's too far away, rather than moving your seat closer, which will then, you know, cramp up your legs so you can't use the clutch correctly, and or the accelerator pedal, I guess, but more so the clutch and the brake, yeah, you can adjust your steering wheel. It's a HKB, so same brand as the Bosch kit that I use, and it was like $6. Shipping wasn't $6, shipping was like $40. But yeah, the part was literally $6. So yeah, this is going for a tune tomorrow. I gotta go buy 40 liters of ethanol because it's got a flex fuel sensor down there. We did start on the dyno tuning this. Well, my mate Chris and I, we actually tuned it on the road just so I could make sure everything was working properly, and turns out it wasn't. I had the problems with the the fuel filter being blocked and also the wiring for the fuel pump. If you have any issues with, say you want to learn how to set up a fuel pump relay, I've got a video about that. But yeah, it is good to get your car tuned first. I strongly recommend getting a wideband sensor. So I'm using the Link Can Lambda because you can, I borrowed the AFR targets from this car and we just conservatively tuned it. If you know your AFR targets, then you can tune the fuel map to those targets. So, and also the closed loop will also adjust the tuning. The only problem is you don't want to be going high boost and high RPM because you have no idea if those targets are correct for, you know, the power and or cylinder pressure, etc., that the engine's wanting. So, but just to get it on the road, you can, you know, if somebody's got a similar engine, you can borrow the Lambda target table and then tune your Lambda to that to, you know, to be able to drive it around. If you haven't seen, this is the Blitz mesh filter that I like to use. It's probably not the best for the amount of filtering that it does, but it definitely sounds amazing. It really makes the car, the induction noise is really, really good with that type of filter. So yeah, anyway, going to get tuned tomorrow. It's got a Blausch Dominator XTR 1.5. So that's basically a GTX 3071. This is a GT 3076. So this is a 10-year-old turbo. That is a 5-year-old turbo maybe. This is a maximum of, you know, this made 450 horsepower and it's tapped out. The tuner reckons this will make, don't know, 490. I mean, even in this car, which is a 4-cylinder, so yeah, 490. Which 450 in this is a handful. Even just 450 in this would be insane. And the gearbox is definitely not going to last that long. So I will not be driving it very hard with ethanol at high boost. But anyway, going to end it here. Thanks for watching. Click subscribe to see how much we do make. Yeah, I mean, I think we're limited by, it's got a 460 litre per hour fuel pump, 1000cc injectors. I mean, yeah, it's really only limited by, I'd say, the injectors. I don't know what, yeah, I'm sure 1000cc you could do 600 horsepower. I don't know, there's calculators online. Should probably look that up. But yeah, guess how much it's going to make? Put it in the comments below. Thanks for watching.